of right synergy between doctors and pharma can actually strengthen healthcare. I would like to welcome our moderator for today's evening, Mr. Mukul Nag. He's a director of CLIRNET and the CEO of Velos Advisory. He works with and sits with a number of boards of startups in areas like healthcare, education, and media. And he was earlier an MD and investment committee member of Standard Chartered Private Equity in Asia. So, sir, over to you.
Resume. Thank you so much, Shri Rupa. It's wonderful to have this session being put together today, and we have a magnificent group of speakers here and a very exciting session ahead. So, very warm welcome to all the doctors, the healthcare industry players, and the associate partners who've joined us today. Over the past 2 years, our frontline doctors, the healthcare staff, along with the supporting cast of the healthcare industry, have been the heroes while the entire world has struggled through the pandemic. India, led by these healthcare stars, has stood tall in delivering patient care at scale, research, vaccinating its own population, and also delivering vaccines to the entire world. In this context, CLIRNET is thrilled to bring together the wonderful star cast of Human, the exciting new medico drama that is making waves in the content streaming space, and the doctors and pharmaceutical industry to talk about how the right synergy between doctors and pharma strengthens healthcare. Human, the series, is drawn on a really vast canvas. It's set in the context of medical drug trials and the surrounding political scenario. It follows two doctors who we have the pleasure of speaking with as they struggle through their past, their duty and morals in the wake of death and destruction. I hope to ask the Human series team some questions about their experience in bringing this together. What I do know for sure is that it's been a massive success, simply because I know of just so many people who have binge watched it, including my wife, within a day's time. So congratulations to the full team on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So without much further delay, let me just quickly introduce you all to all of them. We have Vipul Shah. Vipul is the producer and director of the Human series. He has an extremely successful career in films like Aankhein, Waqt, Namaste London, Singh is King, etc. He also first established his foot firmly in the television space with the soap Ek Mahal Ho Sapno Ka that ran for over 1,000 episodes. I understand that's the first time that any such serial had done so. So we have someone with very solid background out here in that space. We have sitting with him Shefali Shah. She's an actor who needs no special introduction. She has stunned us with her performance in series like Delhi Crime and Ajeeb Dastan. Another one of those binge watched by many people. And she has kept us enthralled by her performance in films like Waqt, Satya, and many more. And in Human, she's definitely created a milestone and a special presence. And we look talking some more with her. Moses Singh is an accomplished director. He is the co-director and writer for Human. With his background in healthcare, no doubt he has brought a lot to this series. The series itself has come to life probably because of the chemistry between both the directors who have conceptualized and executed Human together. We also have the young actor Vishal Jethwa, looking very dapper in black, who really stunned us with his performance in Mardani 2 as an antagonist. And his performance was much appreciated and kept us hooked throughout. In Human, he immerses himself in the role, which, as I understood, is very different from his past roles, which was also a very interesting thing that Human in general did, which is to have actors play roles which are far different from what they were they've done in the past. At least I, as a as just someone who sees it from a distance, could make out. We also have the doctor panel, who are the heroes for the last 2 years. We have Dr. Krishnan Lal Gupta. Dr. Gupta is the chief of nephrology in the premier institute of Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. He has published more than 200 papers in reputed journals and written the chapters of multiple books. He has also been honored with fellowships of National Academy of Nephrology in India, the Royal College of Physicians, UK, and American Society of Nephrology, etc. We have Dr. Manish Mahajan. He brings very relevant experience for this session. He's been a pharma-related physician for past 15 years and therefore has tremendous experience from a pharma side perspective. He's also been associated with a number of clinical trials for both vaccines and medicines, and therefore brings a unique perspective to this particular session. And we have, very importantly, also Dr. Shivakumar R., who is a clinical coordinator and senior consultant, neurology and epileptology at Sakra World Hospital, Bengaluru. He's an MD, DNB General Medicine, DM Neurology, and a fellow in epilepsy. Without further ado, let's get started on what promises to be a very lively session today. So I'll first direct the first question towards the man who probably brought it all together, which is Vipul Shah. Vipul, bringing together a series like this takes tremendous creativity, effort, and coordination. Could you just take our audience through the entire conceptualization process, the timeline, how the series came into realization, and particularly how difficult it was to put this together during the pandemic?
So first and foremost, no work is complete without the team's effort. I had an amazing team with me working with us. So we all are together responsible for all that we have created. Long back, I had read one article that human drug trials going wrong in Africa. And because of that, many lives were lost and human trials were banned eventually. So I wanted to know how it happens in India. And then we started writing about it as a film. And we wrote it for 3 years, and we realized that the subject was too vast to be told in a span of 2.5 hours. And that's when I got in touch with Moses and I gave him the script and I said, have a look at it and you tell me, how you think we can develop this. And he came back, I think, after a month or so that, look, the subject is exciting and we can work on this. And then we started working on this and we set up the writers room. He was obviously leading the writers with 3 more writers. And from that day till now, another 2.5, 3 years went into making this. And so it's been for me individually, it's been almost a 6 years journey. And for my team, it has been close to 3 years. And finally, we are here. So we did a lot of research. When I was writing the film, I went to medical camps and met people. Now, Moses and Ishani and the other writers, when they started developing it, they did their own research and they found new material, which is all incorporated in the series. And that's how it came together. And I directed 5 episodes out of the 10. And Moses directed the remaining 5. And we had Shefali, Vishal, Kirti, who unfortunately could not join us. We had Ram Kapoor, Seema Biswas, Mohan Agashe, Aditya Srivastav, Atul Kumar, Asif, amazing set of actors and amazing technicians. And not to forget that, a subject like this, at the time like this, you need a very able and very sure partner with you. And we got a tremendous partner in Disney Hotstar. They backed our creative vision completely, gave us complete freedom. And the only brief that we worked with together was that We are going to be truthful, we are going to be honest, and we are going to be bold. We are not going to shy away from, saying certain things that might be, slightly unpleasant to hear. So we've gone out with complete honesty, and I think one of the reasons why people are really liking the show is also the fact that it is pretty true, and truth somewhere, connects with the audience. It's a very organic process, but it happens. So I think that is how this whole process went about.
Was this period of just putting together the entire show and then actually executing it a big challenge with stops and starts during the COVID period, or it was relatively smooth sailing?
No, it was very challenging because you are dealing with people's health. So you can't be irresponsible about it. So we had our own safety protocols on the sets, and luckily for the whatever time that we worked, I think we had 4 cases in the entire shoot and pre-shoot. In fact, we had more cases now towards the end of it in the post-production phase. But while we were shooting and while we were prepping for it, I think we were more careful, and that's why probably the cases were very, very few. And of course, my co-producer Ashin, who looks after the entire organization and arrangement, had put in that special extra effort to make sure that safety is and no rule is violated ever. So, because we were shooting in Bombay, we were shooting in Bhopal, in the slums, in Bastis, on roads. We were shooting in Alibag, and there was this big crew with junior artists, a lot of technicians, and a lot of people. So a lot of effort went into it, and of course, it was very challenging that when you break to pick up the rhythm again. And I think one of the most important thing is that everybody kept their commitment on. Sometimes when a break happens and you kind of committed to something else, you move on. The whole team stuck together and they continued their commitment, and they did better than anybody could have expected, and that's how I feel the show became what it became.
Thanks, Pupil. I think it is quite a big thing to be able to create such a series at scale, at the kind of scale that it had, and have just 4 cases and be able to go through this entire period. Shefali, I have a question for you immediately. Really, you have a very complex, power-hungry, willing to do anything Gauri Nath, Dr. Gauri Nath in Human. How did you go about preparing for this, and how did it compare in terms of the kind of effort you had to make for a role like, say, Delhi Crime, where you played a much more straight and upright cop kind of role? Can you just share how you went about this?
So, Dr. Gauri Nath came without an instruction booklet. She is something that I haven't met anybody like her. I don't intend meeting anybody like her. Thank God for it. And she has a God complex. She is extremely complicated. She is very unpredictable. And like I said, it's one of those very exciting roles where you can go completely berserk. And at the same time, you have to make it relatable. What was the process? Well, one is what I do for every script is read. And I don't tire reading the script. I just feel that every time you read it, there's something that's going to come out of it. Second was obviously my interaction with Moses and Vipul. I mean, they had written Gauri, but then they also trusted me enough to, they'd given the roots, they let me take the wings. It was written like a lioness, and I decided to play her completely differently. So I remember we had a lot of discussions, and then one day I said, I want to meet you guys, and I want to tell you that I have a slightly different perspective of how I want to play her. And which
Oh my
was
God.
yeah, you can imagine what Vipul and Moses were like, okay, now what does she come up with? And I said, listen, it's unexpected to play her like a villain. I said, but what happens if there is this incomprehensible mind, so dark and convoluted, in a physical form, who's somebody very docile and demure and polite and almost vulnerable and fragile? I thought the combination would be very exciting. I mean, like the way Vipul, and I think Moses also feels, it's like a Joker's mind in a Lady Diana's body. You know, I thought juxtaposed would be very interesting. And I have to give it to both of them, Vipul and Moses. They were very welcoming to this crazy, bizarre idea that I came up with. And of course, right till the end, even till the release, we knew it was a chance we took. But they were ready to back me on that. It was a risk. Had I played her the way she was written, it was a safe home run because she was written so strong. But as an actor, I felt, but that's unexpected. What else can I do with it? What is it that's going to excite me? And luckily for all of us, I mean, she's worked and she's really worked for everyone. In comparison to Delhi Crime, Vartika Chaturvedi, honestly, there is, like I said, Doc, there isn't anyone I've heard, met, or seen like this person. And I have no intention of meeting anybody like Gauri. Vartika was a real person. You know, it's somebody on many levels you connect with her. In fact, she became the answer to a question we all asked when the Nirbhaya case happened, which was, why is nobody doing anything about it? And it showed that there was somebody doing something about it, and she managed to get all the criminals behind bars in less than 5 days. So that is that emotion of anger, frustration, the need and the cry for justice. All that is very relatable in Vartika. With Gauri, there is almost nothing relatable except her passion and her madness. So I have my passion, but luckily it doesn't go that way. Otherwise, we won't have Mr. Shah here because it would have been pretty tragic.
So how much of the script underwent a change because you decided to reinterpret your character just a little bit?
The script was very strong. The blueprint both of them gave me was extremely strong. So it's not like the scenes change or the lines change. Yes, I cut off. I mean, like I remember, because I really believe that if you can say something in 4 words, don't use 2. And if you can say something in no words, don't even use 1. So I started cutting, ye mat bolo, ye nahi bolne ki zarurat hai, ye kyun bol rahi hai, that kind of my own stuff. And then people said, you know what, we were going to make like a 10-episode show, but I think we've come down to a 5-episode now because she's slashed off almost half of it. But honestly, it wasn't the script. I didn't want to change the script. It was very strong, and that's what attracted me to the show. But the way I approached Gauri changed. And obviously that changes the way she will speak, the way she talks, the way she moves, the way she reacts with people. So yeah.
Thank you. I think this is an appropriate time to bring in some inputs from the world of pharma, right? Just to give a little more context as well to both the audience as well as even some of the those who are part of the session here. Dr. Manish, I had a question for you. Given the context in which this entire series has been put together, right? It would be very interesting for our attendees to understand how, what are the kind of key elements that go behind bringing a medicine or a vaccine into India, the kind of effort, the kind of timelines involved, and any personal experiences that you can share.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Mukul. And let me first of all begin with a disclaimer and a disclosure. So I am a full-time employee of a pharmaceutical organization, so that's my disclosure. And the disclaimer is that whatever views I'm going to express are going to be entirely in my, in my professional competency as a medical professional. So let me begin by thanking the team of Human for bringing a very, very complex topic to a very, very large audience, because uh, going back, understanding about clinical trials, India, was not very much aware about clinical trial in general, and it's a very, very complex process. Talking about how the clinical trials are evolved. It's a very, very complex thing. It depends upon which kind of indication, which disease you are talking about. What does the intended treatment or a vaccine is intended to do? Is it going to prolong life, or is going to prevent death, or it is going to cure a disease? So, it has a lot of element before even, the drugs come into the picture, but also the first thing comes first at what it intends to do. And so if I talk about vaguely, uh, right from the point of identification to the light of the day, uh, in the current scenario, it takes around 10 years, because of, a lot of technology has come in. So I'm giving you the good case. The good case is 10 years. And because of a lot of AI and artificial intelligence coming in, machine learning coming in, so a lot of those redundant processes which were going in the laboratories can be simulated through computational models. But previously it used to take 20 years. So things have been in a better scenario now, but overall it used to take somewhere around 20 years, 15 to 20 years, and then currently maybe 8 to 10 years. So that's for the normal thing. Yes, for the pandemic things, yes, the things have been quite given a leeway for the vaccines, keeping aside, the kind of emotional things into it, and vaccines being one of the core elements of reducing the morbidity and mortality, or in other layman words, the amount of distress it is going to cause in the community. So that has been given a lot of leeway in the current scenario. Otherwise, again, depending upon vaccines, the phase 3 trial itself, I'm not talking about the other trials, the other preclinical studies, and then the phase 1, phase 2 study. The phase 3 study of a vaccine itself take at least 5 to 10 years, because a vaccine needs to show, okay, at the end of 5 years, how many lives were saved, or how many infections were prevented, and so on and so forth, whether the booster was required. So even depending, so it depends upon the kind of your technology or your drug or your vaccine, what indication and what does at the end of the day you want to achieve with that particular intervention, whether it's a drug or it's a vaccine.
And typically, how many patients are involved in, say, a phase 3 trial in the Indian context?
See, again, it depends upon what you see. It's, as I told you, that when we talk about the trials, so it's a very, very scientific process. For example, you cannot have a fixed number. It again depends upon what you want to achieve. For example, if I am going to give a blood pressure medication, and I want to say, and everyone knows that, okay, by treating blood pressure, you reduce the incidence of heart attack or stroke. So everyone knows this. Now, in order, for example, if I take a blood pressure medicine and I want to prove that my blood pressure medicine is going to reduce the incidence of heart attack or stroke, that I need to have those sample sizes in phase 3 itself, somewhere around 50,000 to 1 lakh. I need to give maybe 50% or 30% of the population nothing, or maybe some kind of something which is, the what we call as the standard practice, and then I have to give my intervention to the another 30-40,000, because it also depends what is the number needed to treat. Again, so those are like, those are the very complex technologies. Okay, in how many people I have to give this vaccines or this drug to prevent that one event. For example, if I say, okay, vaccines are 80% efficacious in moderate disease or 100% in this. So again, it depends upon the sample size. If you're exposed to 1 billion or 5 billion population, then you have those figures. Then it depends entirely on those figures which you want to segregate.
Correct. I have a question for Dr. Krishnan Lal Gupta. Dr. Gupta, taking a doctor's perspective, right? As a doctor, you fight the unknown pretty much all the time. which means your work is as much an art as a science. Like we know that when COVID came, there was very less knowledge around, and there was still a lot of variants evolving, and you still had to respond. So it must be also therefore very challenging to evaluate the risk-reward ratio at every step of a patient's treatment. How do you deal with that? Dr. Gupta, you're on mute. Could you just unmute yourself?
Yeah,
you'll find it at the bottom left. Perfect.
It's okay. As you have said, as Director Vipul Shah also said, we had a very tough time in the beginning of the pandemic. It came like we were clueless about it, absolutely. What we are facing, what we are going to deal with, and how to deal with. Every day was a challenging day for us. We started initially with the lockdowns, with the containments, and of course, the appropriate norms for the like social distancing. 6 meter was a common word, masking the face, and of course, washing hands frequently. People became so usual. Many people said like, "Oh, my hand is becoming so white," and like that, and sanitizers. And as a person myself, I had to website myself, it's like that. So there were many problems as far as disease concerned. We didn't know about the disease and what manifestation it was coming to. Varied manifestations were there, gastrointestinal, respiratory, nasal symptoms like that. And so there were so many myths about those presentations and treatments accordingly. So as you know, this particular disease came in a big way and with manifestations, and we know that it can present beside respiratory, many other respiratory systems are involved, the kidneys, the heart, and the lung, neurological. Then, like I just give you example, say like we know about the clotting which occurs in this condition, and it can lead to various manifestations, like patient can have a brain stroke, can have a cardiac heart attack, can have deep vein thrombosis. And we thought that giving blood thinners called anticoagulants may be helpful in such cases. But subsequently, it has been found that it can lead to bleeding also. So similarly, when it came in 2020, everybody is trying to get hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and even remdesivir and all that. We know that hydroxychloroquine and the drugs may not have much role except the remdesivir. Whereas the drugs like steroids were not given that much importance. And we know the steroids are useful, and they are useful even in not only in patients with the respiratory problem, in others also. But we have to balance, like giving too much of this thing can lead to development of mucormycosis, what was called black fungus. So we have to balance so it's like risk and you say art, and the risk and award ratio has to be balanced. So so it is so it also made many professionals come together. We from different professions, whether cardiologists, radiologists, nephrologists, ENT surgeons, or others, we got all together and we tried to manage these patients somehow in a better way. And now, of course, things are much better. And with the vaccination coming, things are improving. Although we are facing so many variants of concern, starting from with the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and now Omicron virus. But let's be hopeful things are better. So this ultimately becomes art as well as science. We can stay together like that.
Doctor, I'm sorry, you will have to just excuse me for 2 minutes. I'm going to get out and come back again. But I must say that all the doctors have been amazing. And thank you, everybody, for the amazing work that you all have done. And I'm going to join you back quickly. Please continue.
For this particular disease, because you know, here at CLIRNET itself, which is today the largest live continuing medical education and doctor-generated content platform in the country, we actually experienced that, which is that there was 5x and 10x increase in the number of doctors who came together on the platform to be able to solve and understand these problems. And there was a COVID, hotline, etc., which was created. So I think that's been one of the amazing developments, which is the ease with which the various segments of amongst doctors have come together for solving for this. I'll now like to move towards Moses, who has a very interesting background, going back into the medical space himself. So Moses, my question for you is, when you worked on this particular story, how did your own background come into play? And also, while casting for Human, how did you go about working on that, given that, at least the way I see it as an amateur, many of the players have played unusual roles?
So you know about my background, because I come from a pharma background and from the Rand Baxi family. Pharma was always been there in the background of my life. I mean, it was always there on dinner table conversations, it was always there. I, however, was never interested in that. And I'm the only one from my family business who's not following that path. And I'm the only one from the family business. My family is Delhi based, who lives in Bombay and is doing movies and all of this, because this was always my passion. Since I was a kid, I was crazy about movies, and I was crazy about creating stories. Actually, I started writing stories when I was 5 or 6 years old. So that's what I'm doing with my life, which is really nice. So when Vipul sir called me in the beginning of 2019 and asked me to read the script that he had already been developing on human drug trials, everything about the script, nothing about the script really excited me as far as the story goes, but human drug trials. I was deeply intrigued. And I think subconsciously, because I'm from the pharma background, there was a connection, because I understood in a way what was really happening. And I was really like, okay, how come no one has ever told this kind of story ever before, or about this particular topic, right? And I think that interest started from the fact that I had grown up around the language of pharma always. So I immediately said that I want to do something, I would love to do something, I want to do something completely fresh and new, but with the central idea of human drug trials. And he's an amazing producer. He was extremely empowering, and he just said, you know what, go ahead and do whatever you need to do. So I went back and I started to think about this whole world of which was churning in my head. And of course, it was very early days, but I wanted to write the story from Gauri Nath's point of view, because I felt that she was, to me, my favorite character, even if I say so. And I wanted to tell a story from that person's point of view, because to me, at the end of the day, everything that she does, her poverty and then her richness and her ambition and her greed and all that, at the end of the day, she's just a very broken mother, right? And that is the story that I wanted to tell, about how she really wants to forget her grief. And then within that, tell also an LGBTQ story, because that is something personal to me, and then completely bring all the elements of it into the human drug trials. And of course, bring Mangu's track, which is the person who are the people from his class of society are the people who are actually the guinea pigs of human drug trials, or actually the patients or the subjects or whatever you want to call them. That came about after Ishani, my co-writer, and I started to research this topic and started to discover what exactly goes on. And we went to Bhopal and Indore, and we met activists and NGO workers and victims, and we spent so much time with them. And everything that is in the show is actually real. It's just that it's a fiction show, but all the facts, the way things happen, the way people are treated is all actually very real. The reason why we set the show in Bhopal was because our research showed us that Madhya Pradesh, for some reason, is the epicenter of human drug trials in India. And because of it has a very large tribal community, and they're the poorest of the poor, and they'll do anything for money. So So all of it, everything that is in the show has a logic and a reason behind it. We just didn't go shoot in Bhopal because we thought it's beautiful. I'd never even been to Bhopal in my life till the research started showing us it's all happening there. And then coming to the casting of the show, I think Vipul sir and I, we've had a great partnership on this project, and he's very senior to me and has done a lot more work than I have, but he always treated me like an equal. And because I had written the show, I had already started to conceptualize certain ways of how the people should be, how the actors should be cast. And every time I shared a thought with him, he was totally on the same page. And many times he had a better idea than even I did. So it was a very collaborative process. And we brought everything together. I mean, we had an amazing casting director who's Mukesh Chhabra, who's done some of the best stuff in the film industry right now as far as casting goes. So we had a very, very clear idea of the kind of person that we wanted. Of course, our three main characters were Gauri, Saira, and Mangu. Because the show kind of is about them and the whole story is their story. And then, of course, everything else happens on the sidelines. So we wanted to make sure that these three people were perfectly cast and, they really carry the show. So they have been. And their work has been so tremendously loved and appreciated that it's such a validation for all of us who work behind the scenes and who work in making sure that we put out the best product over there. It's a huge validation, and it's a huge validation for this production company because they are the ones who make everything happen. I mean, as creative people, as a director or as a writer, I can have a vision and I can have all that. But if I don't have the right producer backing that vision, then oftentimes that just falls through the cracks. And it was a blessed team. I mean, what Vipul sir was saying, hardly anybody got sick during 2 years of shooting. We were writing the show in all of 2020. It was a very physically and emotionally draining year for everybody on this planet, right? But somehow the show turned out to be a blessing because the writer's room, I mean, I was running it on Zoom calls for 8 or 9 months and everybody was having crises in their personal lives. But we were managing to the show was like a blessing because we were escaping into the make-believe world of our show and basically escaping from the reality of COVID and what was actually happening on the ground. And it was allowing us every day to be able to do that. So there was a lot of amazing grace that has come about with this show. And now with the kind of reactions that we all are getting, with the kind of success that the show is already seeing, I mean, it's only been out for a week, 10 days, I would say. And it's already it's on fire. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on. So it's been the hand of God, actually. Yeah.
Great. No doubt about it. As I said, I know of a lot of people who have already gone ahead and binge watched it. So that just shows the power of the ability to grab their audience and hold tight.
Yeah.
Vishal, you've kind of played a very wide range of roles in the past, but often as the antagonist, right? And here as Mangu, you've played a very, very different kind of role, right? So how did this come about? How did you work this out and take it forward? Tell us a little bit about it.
All right, sir. Hello, everyone. And first of all, good evening. And thank you so very much. I'm so glad that I am part of this event and I'm sitting and I'm sharing screen with all the experienced people.
I can't believe you all quit.
Hello.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for making me part of this event. I'm so glad that I am sitting with all the experienced people here. And so now coming back to your question, sir. So it is never easy to play any kind of role, whether it is positive, negative, gray, any kind of color you are playing. So it is very difficult to get the breakthrough of the character and go into the skin of the character. So even Shefali ma'am said the same thing, that the biggest weapon you have in your hand is your script. So I worked on my script, and also when you have a very experienced director like Vipul sir, He's the director and producer of the show, and also when you have the combination of writer and director like Moses sir we have, and very great team like Shirsha sir, and all the technical department like cinematographer, art department. They are just creating the atmosphere, and they are just making your work very easy. And you just go on set, you have your costume. And I also love the production. I mean, Vipul sir and Ashin sir have they've given us very smooth working environment, and we shot in real locations, so it makes everything easy. So when people see Mangu and when people like Mangu, it is not only I have played Mangu, it is the mixture of everyone's effort. And I am so glad that I am part of such great team. And I just want to thank all of them. And I just want to thank my spot dada, and also my makeup department, hair department, because they all are giving me character. And also I also have to put my inputs, but it is not only me, because when people see Mangu, it is not only Mangu, it is not only Vishal Jetwa, it is the praise should be for all of us. So it is like that.
I think that's a very interesting perspective you've given, which is, it's, we all just focus on the actor, but as you correctly said, there are a lot of other people behind who are bringing that actor to be able to play the kind of character he's got to represent. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Dr. Shivakumar, I have a question for you, and really, it's something which is very critical as well. That as a doctor, as an individual doctor, when undertaking any kind of drug testing, what are the key areas of focus from your perspective? What are the things that you're looking at as a doctor to ensure the success of the trial and to take care of all quality and process related issues?
Thank you, Mr. Mukul. And first of all, I would like to thank the whole team of CLIRNET and the whole team of HUMAN. And we all are here as a single team here. So that's the first most important concept, where all the pharma people, the doctors, and the whole team of HUMAN, which is the movie, or what we call the serial based team, is here. So to answer your question, a doctor like me who wants to undertake a trial of a medicine or a drug or a vaccine, the most important thing what the doctor is concerned is the safety of the product. That is the most important thing. It's the right of the pharma, which has conducted the preclinical trials, to give adequate information to the doctor about the safety of the drug. Once the safety of the drug is given to the doctor, then the doctor decides, based on the aim or the objectives of the trial, how many subjects, how it has to be randomized, and what kind of follow-up, what kind of blood tests or the side effects the doctor is going to look into this. And the most important thing is, how is he going to recruit the subjects for the trial? That's the most important thing. And we have seen this beautifully brought up in the HUMAN here about the downside of the trial, how the trial goes up in countries like India, as well as developing countries like African countries, because it has become very difficult for the pharma industry to do trials in developed country because of various reasons, which I'll not go into detail here. So India and other developing countries have become a hub of clinical trials because of the numbers, the economics, and maybe the beautiful concept which the HUMAN has brought about over the HUMAN trial. So I think the most important thing as a doctor for me is the safety, the efficacy, and how many subjects I'm going to recruit, and what are the after effects or the side effects of the drug or the vaccine which I'm going to look in for the trial is the most important thing I'll be looking whenever I conduct a trial.
In putting together this and focusing on these areas, typically, would you have a team of doctors and nurses that look at any one trial, or is it that it gets driven individually by a doctor at a particular drug trial test?
It's always a team. No single individual or a doctor can do all these things. There will be a principal investigator who will be knowing in and about all the concepts or the the protocols of the trial. And then you have a team, the co-investigator, a lot of nurses, paramedics, pharmacological doctors, what we call as clinical pharmacologists, and a lot of paramedics and non-medicals will be involved in the trial. We'll gather the data, analyze the data. So there are a lot of people involved in the trial, like how you make a movie, the director, producer, all these things are very important. A small ward boy to a non-medical will be important for this trial. So it's very important that you have a good team for conducting the trials, and it will be headed by the principal investigator who will look into all the final details of the study.
Shifali, there's some questions coming in, so let me share one question which is that as an actor, what excites you about, you've done both films and now very significant roles in the streaming services. So, as an actor, what excites you about the option of these streaming services, given some of the big success of issue-driven and women-centric shows which are now being shown?
So it's not about where it's going to be. It's not about the medium in terms of whether it's on television or streaming services or films. That's not the detrimental factor. But what is in the kind of work I choose is script, the role, and of course the creators. And the advantage on something like an OTT platform is that you get an extended 8 or 10-hour film to actually explore and discover and create that character. Every small nuance, every small thing about the character. Also have to admit that because the OTT platform is not burdened by the box office or the commercial, the way the commercial cinema actually works. So it's stepped out of the star system, to say so.
Right.
On OTT, they're looking at actors, and now all of them have become their own stars in their own place. So, which is great, because also it's not burdened by what will happen if it releases on, basically like a film. Unfortunately, the fate of a film relies on a Friday and a Saturday. But that's not the case with OTT. It's there for posterity. You can watch it at your convenience whenever you want. And something like Delhi Crime or something like Human, once it catches fire, there's no stopping it. And people will visit it again and again and again. I mean, we have so many people actually who have already seen it twice, which is like, oh my God, really? Have seen Human twice, which is a lot. So it's about all of it. But yes, OTT does give you much more time to really create that person from scratch. And on OTT today, I mean, the character is more important than the star status, which works very well. Also, with a streaming platform, you can experiment, explore, and express without being burdened by what is required on a box office. So you're ready to explore subjects that haven't been told before. You're ready to experiment with characters that haven't come forth. And you're ready to express all of it. And of course, you're pushed to a point of, because you realize when it's going onto a streaming platform, you realize it's not just catering to your neighborhood or your own country. It's catering to the world. Your competition is world cinema. So I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm completely biased to the OTT platform, but I think it does have a lot of pluses working towards it.
We already have a question asking whether there's a season 2 coming up on this.
Moses, you must answer this question. Even I want to know. India wants to know.
India wants to know. Okay, here goes. India wants to know. Only thing, you'll have to reselect her. Moses, you're on mute.
So let me put it this way. We have a very interesting idea in place for Human 2, which we're discussing, but it's too early to say anything more. But yes, with the way that the show has turned out and the way the success that the show is seeing it, we're definitely going to have a season 2. for sure.
And now is the time to
And
say,
I
ladies
know
and
people are
gentlemen.
wondering how and what, but let me also say this to add to the intrigue and the mystery. There is going to be with the exactly same cast. So you can figure out how that's going to happen.
So as they would say on some news channel, please know this is the first time that this confirmation has been received that there shall be a human part 2.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That's definitely interesting. I'm sure people within a week, people are asking this question. Definitely reflects very well on the entire show itself. I think I have one question for the doctors here, and I'll just leave it for them. Any one of them to pick it up. In general, how does a company and the regulatory framework ensure the quality and testing rigor before allowing usage of any drug?
So, Mukul, maybe I can pitch in, and maybe my other colleagues can also pitch in. So, when we talk about regulatory framework, it depends upon which country you are applying for. So one is the overall framework, which is which is in principle is similar across all the countries, which we call as the good clinical practices. Overall, keeping the subject safety in mind, that subject safety is the most important paramount feature of any drug usage. So as we know in medicine, what we call as primum non nocere means first do no harm. So that's the basis which everyone needs to follow. That's the number one thing. Second thing is that when we talk about keeping in control the quality of these studies, so there are checks and bounds at each and every steps of the clinical trials, not only human clinical trial, even in preclinical studies, and all the trials and trial related documents are open for audits, and these audits are normally random, right? Those are not pre-decided audits, so it can happen anytime, and you have to keep those documents archived for 3 years, 5 years, or even 10 years, depending upon the kind of regulatory practices. Also, a lot of things are there. For example, most of these studies are randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. Even if I talk about the regulatory framework, the very important scientific vigor is what we call as the study blinding. Study blinding means neither the patient nor the investigator, even the doctor who is the part of the study, he does not know what he is giving to the patient. So that's the number one. So there are not only regulatory framework means which the government, the regulatory bodies, they decide, but also the scientific rigor to make it unbiased. Also, once the drug is approved, the drug is still under the scrutiny under the phase 4 clinical trial for, and moreover than that, even if a drug is there in the market, the biggest competition, the market forces are the one which is further going to decide whether the drug actually works or is it safe. So even if you have, the best of the studies, and you have seen those drugs even failing in the marketplace after launches. And there have been drugs in the past who had made, tall promises and who have failed. And also, as you know, that science evolves with the time. So some drugs which were useful in the past have found no meaning in the current scenario. For example, like, people are not running behind after ivermectin in the current scenario. People are not running behind, SCQs or hydroxychloroquine in the current pandemic. Right, people are not running behind after favipiravir in the current scenario. So those drugs were good at one particular point of time where we had limited data. We found that okay, these are something which is giving us some kind of a better response to the current standard practices. And since the practice standards of science and standards of treatments, they evolve with the time, with the new technology coming in, with the with the new understanding of the disease. And when those standards changes, the drugs also have to fight those standards. So that's my take, and I have the other colleagues who can.
Yeah. Sure. As Dr. Manish has said, whenever a new drug or a device comes, it's always to find whether it's going to be better than one before for a particular problem. Like you can drugs for cancer take a long time, but I've talked as a nephrologist, as a physician, I would say in terms of control of blood pressure or diabetes. So always, first of all, there's a conception of it as a drug or design what you want to do. Then preclinical trials are conducted on cells and then animal studies. Again, these are regulated. There are regulatory the rules for conducting even animals. You cannot just do like. And once it is there, we have 4 phases as Manish has mentioned. One is phase 1. Phase 1 is starting the sample in patients or volunteers in a small sample. So you don't know anything about the drug, what is going to harm like that thing. And then the doses are adjusted. In phase 2, how much dose is going to be beneficial. And we have to fix the maximum dose with maximum benefit, but least harm. So then phase 3 comes once it's proved that it doesn't harm. And then comes the phase 3, it's allowed by like Food and Drug Administration USA or DCGI in India. And on phase 3, then let the drug be used and compared with other drugs. And as the minister said, the post-market surveys are for phase 4. Whether it is going to be useful and is better than before, safety profile is the most important concern. And if you find that it's having problems, it's not going to be useful, we will tend to withdraw. And if it's not going to be beneficial over other drugs, then again. But if it's found to be the benefit and the reward ratio, risk versus reward ratio, again, this comes here. Here, a question comes, as already mentioned, Dr. Shiva also mentioned, and Manish mentioned, a synergy between doctors and healthcare professionals. Many times sitting in the OPD, medical representatives come to us, and the question is whether we should interact with them or not. And I would just quote 1214, there was a, let there be no contact with apothecaries. This was order of Frederick King of Naples. But that it is not true actually. We are led, we are given information. Pharma industry is very important in our work because they can invest a lot of money and government cannot do so much of research as the farmers can do. Their R&D division, they're always busy doing something new and all that. And once the drug comes, they put a claim that this is going to be better drug. So when they give this idea to the doctor, like a new drug for hypertension or diabetes, I would like to try it. But at the same time, the question here comes, the question of accepting gifts. Like somebody, pharma companies most of the time would tend to give something like small notepads or some other bigger gifts. And here it comes, should you be influenced by this? Because they're promoting their brand and things like that. Here, I think you have to be very cautious. All physicians should choose because patient has given a sort of has chosen you to give it treatment. He has a great faith in you as a physician. And whenever we prescribe drugs, often these are costly, new drugs. Most of the time, they are costly than before. So we have to see patient benefit always. Is that going to be useful or not? And patient benefit should be considered. And faith should not be, we should not go against that. So that I think there has to be right synergy between doctors and pharma industry. That's the important crux of what I'm saying. Both are important. They have an important role to play, and that's the way things work.
I think that's a lovely point at which to get to Dr. Gupta, which is really around the fact that while everyone has their interests, right? There is a synergy which definitely exists between the doctors and the healthcare industry, because only when they work together that can patient care be delivered on the ground, right? So there is a value to the efforts that each one of them bring in with the right kind of balances, checks and balances. That's what leads to positive outcomes for patients, and that's something that we are seeing constantly. That doctors are very, very careful about taking care of their patients, putting their patients' health first and foremost in taking a call on any kind of medicine that they might give to them or how they might approach the treatment protocol. Shefali, before I'm acutely aware we are already running over time, so I'd look to close out things, but there are two questions being placed, which I'd like to place before you. One is, which part was the most difficult, or which scene was the most difficult for you to portray in Human as Dr. Gauri Nath's? And second question is, what message would you like to share with India's amazing healthcare providers and doctors who have delivered patient care during these COVID times?
So the first question, Doc, it's very very difficult to place my finger on one particular scene. It's almost close to impossible because Gauri was not an easy character to play. And every time I go in front of the camera, whether it is Gauri or Vartika or any other character, I am extremely unsure about myself. I have a lot of self-doubt. It doesn't show. I know it doesn't show, but it is. I'm unsure. I have self-doubt. I have this big fear that I do not know. So whenever you start with I do not know, you're only going to find it an Everest to climb. And so every part of it has been difficult. She's been a very consuming character, very exhausting and very consuming. But I can tell you one particular scene, which I'm not talking about the emotionality of it, but you know, it was quite a scene for all of us. It's my last scene. So we had all these dogs around me, and they're not my dogs. I had done a couple of scenes with them. They are trained dogs for shoots, but I mean, they have a mind of their own, and they're like, you see them in the show, they are magnificent creatures. They're massive. Like when they sit up, they're taller than me, you know. And so for the last sequence where I had to lie there looking into oblivion or whatever, passed out, we needed the dogs to come in close to me and sniff me and lick me. So the trainers suggested we put egg all over my body, which we did, which is disgusting, but more than that, and then they still wouldn't come. So they had a fetch toy. Now, what happens with any toy, if you throw it, particularly with a pack of dogs, then they're all going to run towards the same toy and fight over it. So I remember saying it because we did a couple of takes and, you know, they were still not coming close enough. So I said, give me that ball. And I dug a pit in the sand right under my head and I lied down on it. And I know for sure, everyone who was watching it, I didn't realize it. But everyone from the directors to the team, to the ADs, my team, they were terrified because it would have taken this much for it to go wrong. And then I was completely exposed to these 5 gorgeous, ferocious dogs. I was completely exposed. There was nothing I would have been able to do. So I think that was probably, I mean, I really wasn't scared. But I think everyone around me was for sure a little concerned because it wasn't exactly the safest place to be. But as far as emotionally, she's been very consuming, very exhausting. And I'm so glad for it. I don't know any other way of playing.
Wonderful.
And what I want to say to all the health professionals, and I think this is unanimous, I'm sure Vishal, Vipul, Moses, every single one of us has the same thing to say. Thank you so much. You all have put yourselves in risk. You all have been there every day and throughout, not just during the pandemic, throughout, but during the pandemic. You know, you all have stood between us and the disease and fought for it, putting yourselves at risk, putting your health at risk, putting your emotional mind and body at risk, and just so that you all could protect us and take care of us. And we cannot begin to thank you all enough.
Can I give a message here? Yeah, thank you, Shefali, for giving us that acknowledging, appreciating our role. As a matter of fact, it was a very tough time when the pandemic started. We were just, we had like barriers going to the war without we to move the enemy to fight. Every day, all healthcare workers, right from doctors, the ambulance person, the nurses, they were going with a zeal to save the people. Even I would say the sanitariums, you know, the crematoriums are taking bodies. But basic thing is that we have to protect ourselves by like, I would say I was used to a feeling of like astronaut having a double face mask, the face shield, the gown and the thing like that. And then this way we would protect ourselves. Many times I would like miss my food because I didn't want to remove my mask so that lest I get contract the infection. And similarly, many doctors would, because of this face mask, they had tough time in the nights, long duty hours. But all this, ultimately now there's a positive hope. There's a message I want to give. Now that we have vaccines which has come, we have different 4 types of vaccines are available in India. Covaxin, Covishield, Zycov, and of course the Sputnik is there. Through this forum, I would like to say that everyone should get vaccinated. Till today, noon, we had a figure of like 1.625 billion people have got vaccinated, and only 67% had a double vaccination. Only very small 0.001 is a precautionary booster dose. My point to say through this forum is, please spread the knowledge. Let everyone of healthcare workers or even general public who would see this our series of humans should know that vaccination is most important. And as the chief of WHO said, the COVID will disappear only if each and every individual is vaccinated. And earlier we do is, the better it is, we get rid of this disease. Because only there's going to be different variants coming again and again. And you all see whatever happened the last year, the horrifying scenes of people dying in the hospital because of lack of oxygen, the converter in the full, people crying. That scene should not come. Luckily, this Omicron is not that bad. But still, vaccination gives us a protection against occurrence. And even if you get the disease, if your comorbidity is kept a milder course, the mortality is least. So that's the message I want to give through this forum. Thank you.
Absolutely, you're absolutely
Just
right.
one layman question to you, doctor. When do you think this particular wave will peak and when will it start going down?
When do you think you're going to win an Oscar? It's as unpredictable as that.
No, he will know. There's science to it.
I'm no astrologist, but my daughter is a microbiologist. She's telling me, Papa, it's likely to be end of February is going to be a peak, and then again going to be decline.
So typically 1st February onwards, it will start declining.
No, he said end of Feb will be a peak and then the decline.
End of Feb is the peak.
Mid Feb, you can say, but it's going to be a peak, has to be there. But right now it's rising. Of course, Maharashtra has been lucky to control it. But if not Delhi and other metropolitan cities, the number is increasing. So that's why I say that we have to be very careful. We don't have to shed our appropriate behavior, COVID. I go to hospital, sometimes double mask, sometimes even triple. The face shield is always there. And similarly, hand washing frequently, sanitizer use, soap, and social distancing element that we are not able to maintain as much because we have to see patients. So that is basically for everyone in general. We should try to go with the general steps of, and of course, the good eating habits, good sleep, exercise, all this is going to be very important. And those people who smoke should stop smoking. Alcohol should also be taken in less quantity. And there are many myths we should be taken care of. That's all.
I think we now have come to a stage where we've got some very good takeaways from this entire session. One, of course, Shefali, much appreciated, your appreciation for doctors and all the healthcare staff and people. I think it's something which is felt by all of us as individuals, as patients, as caregivers, and as CLIRNET. We've seen it. We've seen the kind of effort which has gone behind protecting India and its population. I think second is Dr. Gupta's request that everyone vaccinate themselves, and I'd hope that using your platform, with your focus on the medical space, maybe the human team can continue to also put out that message for vaccination to be continued, not to be construed in any other way, but really to use that as a basis for the success of this entire series to get reflected in getting people focused on vaccinating themselves, because that's the only way we'll protect ourselves and also protect everyone else in the country. So with that, thank you very much to all the speakers. I really appreciate the time. I think it was vast in terms of the canvas that it played with, just like the human series is very vast in the canvas that it played with. And really appreciate everyone's time. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, docs.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.